right, Michael Alcoholic.
Michael.
So, Tony, thanks for asking me if I'm chair. I've been sober since July 8th of 2012. I have a sponsor, I am a sponsor, there's the details. So, this meeting's wild. It's a little wild.
Oh, fucking tame tonight.
I saw an elephant walking up and down the hall. There you go. But also, it's good to see dedication in here because the Dodgers are in the World Series and we are not watching. Well, I've definitely heard.
Turn your phones off.
There you go. But yeah, I think what I'm going to talk about tonight is God shots. I think that's going to be my topic. It's been a tremendously busy time for me the past couple of years, and I'm a little scatterbrained, and sometimes nothing comes out, and sometimes I'm of service to somebody, and that's the best I can hope for. So if I say anything tonight that's of use to you or Alcoholics Anonymous, that's just my higher power talking through me. That's it. But I got sober in Santa Monica. Well, actually, on Sunset Boulevard was my last drink. I crashed my car into a family going the other way. And yeah, the first God, actually, you know what, before that, I've been experiencing God shots my whole life. I just didn't know what they were. The first God shot that I can really quantify is my first drunk. It took me out of myself. It made me feel whole for a little bit. And that was, I still remember it was a great feeling. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't great at the time. And, but you know, that's kind of how that works. It's like it became my whole life right from the start. People were pointing it out, and but I needed that continual. I was chasing that for years. And then I got sober pretty young. I got sober at 20, and that's the next God shot that I could really put my hand on. Is that my car wouldn't start after I crashed it into a family going the other way. I would have driven away. That was a God shot. That was my higher power working for me in a way I could not work for myself. And another God shot was that my family knew what Alcoholics Anonymous was. They are not sober. They're not members of AA. But I remember coming down, they bailed me out of jail, and I remember coming downstairs the next morning, and there were these meeting pamphlets there. My mom had printed out some, sheets of, here's some meetings. And, it's funny, we lived like 4 blocks away from the group that would become my home group for years, and I didn't start going to that meeting for like 2 years. But the next God shot was meeting the sponsor, and he was approachable. It's like, I have never, Alcoholics Anonymous has never been a challenge for me, like a pejorative or like negative. I've always been met where I'm at if I'm willing to take the next step. And so I got myself to a meeting, and I met a guy who was perfect for me. This was like a 6:45 a.m. meeting. It was in Marina Del Rey, and everybody in there was a little closer to retirement age than I was. I was a 20-year-old kid, and I think there was only one guy in there, and he was an LMU student. And I thought he looked really cool, and he had a girlfriend and a car. I was like, that's the man right there. And so he helped take me through the steps. And there you go. But God shots aren't always positive things for me. Like there was one time I was traveling for work for about 3 months and working every night, and I was working in nightclubs, playing music. And I think I went to like 3 meetings in 3 months, and I was crusty by the end. But I was just willing enough that when I got home, I decided that I needed to change my home group. And I went to this big group, and I ended up meeting my sponsor. I think that first night, I changed sponsors to a new sponsor, and he's been my sponsor for the last 10 years. And that man has helped me change my whole life. And it's just through experience, strength, and hope. That's it. So out of that, that weirdness and being really angry, and I was traveling in a little van with a bunch of other young dudes, and it was a fairly acrimonious situation, but that was a God shot for me in that situation. Okay, here's another God shot for you right here. When I was a couple years sober, I got to make a living amends to my sister. I read her a post, like a little note card that I went through with my sponsor. I did, what I would consider a more I don't know if you can call it by the book because it's just what my sponsor had me do. But that repaired the relationship. And I remember when I first got sober, she didn't really want to have anything to do with me. I had really thoroughly burned that bridge. And a couple years sober, we're doing the deal, going to meetings, being more reliable, showing up, not making things all about me, and not ruining things. And she called me up and said, "Hey, Michael, I'm getting married, and I would love it if you would play piano while I walk down the aisle." And I got to use what I thought at that time was like the only skill that I had, which was music, and I got to use that to be of service, and that was because of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it just so happened, another godshot at her wedding, there were like 2 or 3 other people who I needed to make amends to, who I owed some money to, who she invited. And so I got to walk up and read them a little note card and hand them a little check, and that was a godshot right there. And that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And another godshot, that wedding was in a winery. And I was not, it wasn't even a thought. I wasn't even thinking about drinking. And that was a real godshot right there, is that I was at a wedding in a winery and everybody was cool with me. There was nobody who was concerned that I might drink. Nobody was watching the bar, and I did not think about drinking. That is a fucking godshot right there. I'm allowed to swear, right? Cool. Okay. That's a godshot.
Too fucking late.
Well, there you go. But that has continued. Actually, my whole sobriety has been a long series of these kind of coincidences that make sense, but also kind of don't make sense. I remember, like, Alcoholics Anonymous has shown up. It's actually happening right now. What's been going on for me lately is I got called in for an emergency project at work, and it was like 2 weeks straight, and the client needed to be in my office with me, and I had to miss a bunch of meetings, and I was really, really upset. And the only thing that was holding me down is my assistant is also a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so that was cool. But then in the middle of it, the client turns, he's like, "You know what, I stopped drinking a couple of years ago, and I've never really considered myself sober, and I think I was meant to meet you two, because this is the first time I've ever said I'm sober." And me, I was angry, I was upset, I was like hanging by a thread, I was arguing with my fiance, things were not looking good, but I was acting better than I felt with this one person. And that's the thing, it's like service isn't always like a unilateral thing. Like sometimes I'm fucking up in certain places, but it's just that one right action that can be like a little seed for somebody else. And I got to be of service to that guy, and that is a fucking god shot. This right now, it has been, I'm coming to like the middle of a very busy period for me at work, and it has been nuts, and I have had to miss some meetings, and it has been uncomfortable, and it's only now where I've gotten asked to speak at like 3 meetings in a week. That's how it happens. Like, there's all I have ever had to do is just show a little bit of willingness and say yes, and Alcoholics Anonymous has met me where I'm at, and I get to be a little bit of service. Another god shot. I remember when I was a couple years sober, I was the secretary of a big meeting on the west side, and I got elected to be secretary of that meeting right before I got into massive relationship drama, and a long-term relationship ended. And it was super painful. This was also, she was a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous at that point in my same home group, and she didn't start off that way. She started off an active alcoholic in our relationship, and then got sober, and I was so uncomfortable, because she would show up sometimes at that meeting, and in fact, the night we broke up, we both went to the same meeting. It sucked, right? But that commitment kept me grounded, because I don't know if I would have continued to go to that meeting, because it's like, fuck that, she's gonna be there, and I don't wanna see her, but I had to walk through that. So Alcoholics Anonymous was right there, walking me through that, and I was physically separated from everybody else behind the table. And it was great. It was like exactly what I needed. Every step along the way has been that way. The same thing happened. Another long-term relationship ended in sobriety, and shortly after that I was elected secretary of another meeting. These things happen. That's why, like, for some reason, whenever I get a new sponsee or get a commitment or get asked to do something, my first reaction is, fuck, what's about to happen? Because for me, like, my experience has been that I just never know what's coming, but I know that it'll be cool. Like, things are cool, nothing's there's no such thing as a big deal in Alcoholics Anonymous. All right, here's another God shot for you. Like this whole, my career right now is a total God shot of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was the secretary of that meeting. So that I was just talking about, long-term relationship, got elected secretary. And it was at a guy's house. It was a men's stag. It was a raunchy men's stag. The name of the meeting was called Bag of Dicks. And I loved that meeting, dude. I was the chief dick. It was great. But yeah, and out of nowhere, it turns out that the guy who hosted that meeting knew the guy who would become my boss, and who helped me like have a career. And that's a total God shot. And I've also seen that man has helped me like start to work on repairing some issues that I didn't know I had. I didn't really know that I had issues with my father. And this guy is about the same age as my dad, you know, in a weird way, kind of reminds me of him. And he's a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've watched him go through bouts with cancer. I've watched him continue to show up, and it's like, that man has helped me repair a lot of things. And it's crazy. And like, I can't, so like, you know, if you're new tonight, or if you're, you know, wondering what the next step is, like, I can only share with you my experience, which has been that at every twist and turn, I continue to be surprised. That's kind of it. Like, I just never know what's coming. And also, like, if I could draw up a list of all the shit I want and say, like, I'm sure that this is what I want, I would, like, for sure would have sold myself short. Because what I wanted when I got sober, I certainly don't have today, and I certainly don't want today. But what I have today is stuff that I really value. Another God shot. So after Bag of Dicks was a Wednesday night meeting. Is it Wednesday?
Yeah, it is.
Hey, here we are. And there you go.
pattern?
There you go. Hey, you know what? It's not a requirement to know what day of the week it is now, dogs. You just have to show up at a meeting. So after that Wednesday meeting, we had like a little movie night sometimes. And it was at the guy's house, so we'd like, you know, we'd all like kind of climb into one of like the guest house area, and we'd sit down and like watch TV. And we were watching one of the Star Wars shows, and I was on one of those dating apps. And I was just like, I'm showing one of the guys, he's my best friend, one of the things, and he's like, oh yeah, swipe right on that one, and we're gonna get married next year.
Oh my God.
Like, you can't make that shit up, dude. That's really cool. And actually, that best friend, that moment in itself, was another God shot. I hope this is getting redundant. Because that guy, I lost touch with him. He was my childhood best friend, and I lost touch with him for like a decade. And I did not know that his life was falling apart, and that he was like drinking Steel Reserve all day, and had shakes. And like, I was a couple years sober, and a mutual friend called me up, said, hey, my mom died. My dad's like kind of out there using drugs, and like, I really, you know, need somebody to show up for him, or like I called him, something like that. And so I went and showed up for this guy, and I picked up his mom's ashes, brought it to the service, and I was sitting down in my like shiny, I'm sober a couple years in Alcoholics Anonymous suit, and in walks my childhood best friend, and he's shaking, and I'm sitting up front next to the guy who's you know, mourning his mom's passing, and I gave my friend Kyle a ride home, and shortly after that brought him to a meeting. He met his first sponsor. He was sober a couple years, went out, and now he's back, and he's sober like 7-8 years, something like that. And we just talked either today or yesterday, but it's like, I got my best friend back because of Alcoholics Anonymous. And like right now, like, you know, things have been kind of going wild in my life a little bit. You know, work is a little out of hand, and it's all shit I asked for, but it's like, when it's happening, it seems like it's a little too much. And it's moments like this where this meeting is being of service to me right now by allowing me to shift my perception. And like, you know, sometimes I wonder, like, when will I experience another God shot? And I'm constantly experiencing it. It is my choice when I experience a God shot. I just have to shift my perception. But the problem is, like, I can't really do that. But the reason I say it's my choice is because I can choose to go to a meeting, and I can choose to pick up that phone. And so I have that in my power. Like, I can reach out, and if I just like reach out a little bit, it comes back to me in spades. Yeah, I mean, my life is really cool, and it's big, and it's not always easy, and that's great. I don't know. You know what's been happening recently is a bunch of my sponsees like got other sponsors or like kind of fell off the map. So I'm down to like one right now, and I sponsored this guy for 11 years, and that was a fucking god shot too. So when I was like playing music across the country, the first show we ever played on this one tour we were on was in Denver, and we played, and there was this little scrawny kid with like a tie-dye bandana on the audience, and he watched me come through his town drunk and fucking shit up for a couple years, and then one day like we came through and I was sober, and he got to see me like grow in early sobriety, and he kept following, and he had my number, and so he called me up one day, and was like, hey Mike, I'd really love it if you would, I'm having trouble drinking, can't control it, I want to get sober, can you be my sponsor? He knew I was in Alcoholics Anonymous. And now he's sober like 11 years and is about to get married too and has a career, and that's all because of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's like, this thing is just popping up miracles left and right if we do the work. And the work is not hard. For me, at least, it hasn't been hard. The hard stuff is like the moral inventory. That shit's hard, right? But like the showing up to meetings, the reaching my hand out and helping the newcomer, that stuff is the gift right there. At least in my experience. And so, I don't know, I got like 3 minutes left, 1 minute left, something like that. And I did not know any of this was going to come out of my mouth. So I'm very grateful. Thank you guys for helping me shift my perception today, because I really fucking needed it, because I've been a miserable asshole the past couple weeks. And I'm grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous. Thanks.